Welcome back to the PistonDAO channel. We're here today with Rajesh Kutty, who's a friend and an automotive designer. He's designed things all the way from NFTs to drones, and more recently done the interiors of some of the most amazing and impressive Bentleys, including the Bentley Centennial model. We'll talk about guns, we'll talk about the design of all sorts of things that he has an interest in. Thanks very much for joining us today. I'm Emmanuel, this is Cassie, this is Rajesh. Everybody gets 3 cards.
Okay.
Whoever picks the trump card wins. Right? That's it.
Simple.
You know how to play it? You played it as a kid? No? They didn't have it in India? It was global. Cassie, you ever played this game before?
Never played this game before.
We bought a version of this in battleships in the Missouri one. So look for the best card you got. Okay, there's one for you. Everybody gets 3. Nope. Sorry about that. Okay. I'll go first. Okay? Just so you know how it's done. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay, my favourite car. This car was on my wall as a kid. I know a lot about it. I've never driven one, but I plan on doing that very shortly. Okay, Ferrari F40. I'll take top speed. 201 miles per hour.
You got me. Jaguar F-Type, 171.
Okay, I'll be taking that. Thank you.
217 La Ferrari.
So why do you love the F40, Manuel?
Well, my uncle had 2 of them. It's probably the coolest looking modern classic, I think, out there. And we're on a mission to try and get one of these in the garage and drive it at some point in the near future. Okay. All right, let's go. Your turn.
All right. I have the, interesting, the 2000 Bentley Arnage Red Label.
2000.
Arnage?
Yeah, which year was that?
2000.
2000. Okay.
2000. So I'm going to say that I'm going to go with max power, which is 400 horsepower. What you got?
I think you might just win there. Let me have a look.
You might have to win this one because you mixed the packs. No, that's why I said, should we not mix the packs? But the good news is I don't have any
What do
British
you got?
horsepower.
I've got a 760 horsepower.
What is
Ford
it?
Mustang Shelby GT 500 2020.
Right.
So what do you know about the what do you know about this one?
So that was one of the first cars that came out since 1980 they'd never designed any cars there, the Bentleys. And this one, when VW took over Bentley in 1999, this was probably one of the first ones that they came up with.
Oh, right.
So in a long time, nearly 2 decades, there was no cars, and then suddenly.
Why?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe they were struggling. They were part of Rolls-Royce and everything, and then
Yeah,
of course BMW took over Rolls-Royce, and then VW took over Bentley. I think 98, 99 is when they started the studio,
Yeah.
design studio. I mean, there was a studio, but under VW's leadership, and the Arnage then was followed by what is one of my favorite Bentleys, which is.
That's right. You don't remember. You've been too busy working at Volvo.
Yeah, the coupe.
GT Continental.
No. Which has got the Arnage's front.
Flying Spur. You should know this.
So the Arnage is in some ways it marks kind of the first. I mean, since the last 2 decades, Bentley's of course been designing so many other cars, but then this one's the one that started it all.
What? So this? What did they have like a deviation from how they looked before? With this
As well, yeah.
Yeah.
Like an old
It's
Rolls Royce, right?
Yeah, it was basically a relabeled cars, and in some ways it was always a Rolls Royce, and then
Right.
they just put one as a Bentley and one
yeah.
as a Rolls Royce. But this is good.
So this is when the Bentley was born.
But
Today's
this is when
Bentley.
today's Bentley was born, exactly.
Right.
So the good news is you do know a lot about Bentleys. So you worked at Bentley, and then you also you're currently working at Volvo, is it?
Now I'm freelancing on my own.
So
So
tell us about the Bentleys. So you've got GT3R. That looked pretty sexy. Super Sports, Flying Spur, and something called the EXP 100 GT.
Which is the car that we came up with in 2019, which is 100 years since Bentley was in existence. So what
what exactly do you do?
So I'm an interior designer,
right?
And that's what I've been doing for the last 2 decades.
Automotive interior designer.
Sorry, say that again.
Automotive interior design.
Automotive interior designing. And I started with Bentley in 2007. So let's say, we just talked about the Arnage. So a few years after that. And so one of my special things, what I liked best was when I did the EXP 100 GT, because that car was basically the embodiment of what Bentley wanted to be in, or is aiming to be for 2035. And I don't work with Bentley anymore, other than doing stuff in the branded goods and product design side. But I do know they're still having that as their kind of their mark. It's a physical representation of where they want to be. So there's a big story to be told in that car. So it was a lot to do with strategy and how, of course, how the car looked. Because at the end of the day, it's the visual of the car that attracts people to it and makes them understand it. And pictures.
Yeah, I mean, for me, attracting the Bentley is only the interior. That's all. I look at those cars. I want one.
It's funny you say this.
The outside looks pretty good, but the interior for me is like I just want some comfort.
It's funny you say this because.
Is that because of you?
In 2010.
Can you design my car?
In 2010, we had this kind of a charity event where I was at the Mayfair, Jack Barclays. So when we were sitting there, the guys at Jack Barclay, the sales guys, they said, because next to it was an Aston Martin and they've got obviously the Rolls Royce and everything. They said that guys would come in because of the Aston Martin, at least at the time. Now, of course, I think the Bentleys look cooler. Would come into, because Aston Martin attracted them to it. And then because the Bentley is next door, they would pop in next door. And then as always, you sit inside the car to see how it is. Yeah. And they straight away sold with the interior. And they said, it's good that Aston is next to us, the salesman would say, because at least that way it comes in and then once they sit in the Bentley.
Draws a crowd.
Yeah.
Did he drive out with the Bentley or the Aston?
I've driven a lot of Bentleys.
Did he drive out, that customer? Did he drive out?
No. He said this.
Just in general, this is what happened.
This is what generally happens.
Yeah, people would come to Aston Martin and then leave with a Bentley.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. So I saw there was a Bentley for sale. I don't know what model it is. It's a GT.
Yeah.
And it's about 20 grand, maybe 30 grand sterling. And I don't know what they are new, but maybe 10 times that. The depreciation value of that is just like this. But you look at the interior and the luxury of it, I think thanks to you, we can probably guarantee it's probably the most comfortable looking luxury car on the market. Yeah,
it is pretty. It's quite a comfortable car. I mean, again, thanks to its connections with the VW group as well. So the quality standards were put really high, and until it became probably the top, even superior to Audi and others as a benchmark for the VW group itself. So because it had to be, because it was the most expensive cars they had.
So you were involved in one of the landmark cars, weren't you? Which was 100 years of Bentley.
Yeah.
And so at what point did you get involved with that car? And what was that car?
So we knew, obviously, that's a good question, because we knew this car, as designers, what we do is we always have a competition amongst ourselves. And then one of our teams gets selected.
Right.
And then rather than work on 3 different cars at the time, you work together. And for a show car like that, it's a much smaller time period, unlike a production car. Where in a production car, you have 2 cars that go side by side, maybe 3 or 4, and then it comes to 2, and then finally 1, and then that meets the SOP or the production. But in case of the show car, this car, I already started doodling ideas by the time it was 2016. One of my first key sketches go back to 2016, and then.
What you were already
thinking of where we should.
You were already going to win.
So, yeah, you had to, because there are some very talented guys out there. Yeah. So it's a healthy competition, but that's why it gets the best out of you. So then obviously when the time came, I was ready to start making a model of it in the virtual world and everything else with the support, and won the event. And when I say won the event, I mean. It was the direction that was chosen, rather than saying, of course, in the end.
You won the event.
Yeah. And then,
did you get a medal?
And then we worked towards it as a team. And then, of course, from there on, there's a contribution of the whole company. So you can't put your hand up and say, oh, but let's say the initial theme was drawn in by me.
Yeah.
And then we worked together to get it to the state.
And so you have, so it's your sort of initial concept that won the job essentially.
Yeah.
And then you bring the team in to
and then we work together, and the interior chief and this is in the interior I'm talking about. Of course, there's somebody else in the exterior, and then we all work towards it, and then we kind of improve it. So obviously, from where I started to where it was, there would be a lot of change in terms of detailing and everything else, and based on the strategy that the team would have built up. Because there were obviously marketing involved, there was engineering involved.
There were practical considerations.
I mean, towards the end, when we actually launched the car, we actually made a little kind of a casing, and I haven't seen this anywhere on the internet or anything, and that would go onto the door end. The idea was that 100 years hence, when the car is there, somebody could actually pull it up. It's a time capsule.
Oh, right. That's a pretty good idea.
And then you unscrew it, and then you remove the scroll of paper.
What is it? A newspaper from back in...
The scroll of paper had all the employees of Bentley working in 2019.
That's great.
And in fact, when the car was launched, it was being shown on the screen. So that way, everybody in the company felt that they were responsible.
They were seen.
That they were seen. And not just, it's the design department. So
that's
why, because one can't take credit for what happened for 100 years and everything else. So,
Is that the car is that where you met my brother, Jamie?
I met him before that because at the same year also I was lucky that I got the production flying spur out as well.
Yeah.
And Jamie was working in seat engineering and that's where, while developing that, I met him. Unless I've met him earlier than that in GT3, I'm not sure, but this was about, again, 2016, thereabouts.
So he's got a story about designing, and I'm not sure which of the Bentleys it was, and I assume it was one of the ones that you worked on together, that he was working on the glove box design, and one of the requirements of the glove box dimensions was that it had to fit the dimensions and weight of a certain handgun, because this particular car was used in the US by
the
gangsters, the mafia or whatever. And
true story or not?
He was given these dimensions of the gun that had to fit.
Unofficially.
So that could have been
record.
That could have been. That wouldn't be for a production Bentley, of course.
Yeah.
But that would have been for.
No, it was a 5 kilo requirement that the glove box had to handle at least 5 kgs.
Yeah, that it would anyway.
It could anyway.
It would anyway. But what I'm saying is that must have been a Molina job, because that they look at customer requests on its own. I mean, when I was in Fort Lauderdale's dealerships, because Bentley did something called co-creation, where the designer would go, especially if you had designed it. In this case, it was a flying spur, and then you would spec the car with the customer. So that was a special thing, and only select customers were invited, and you did this for them. So when we were doing something like this, there was a guy with a similar story, and he told me about his wife having broken down a car somewhere, I don't know which part, this was in Florida. And he was scared that the AA guy, or the AA equivalent guy, could be dangerous. So, so he said, so as soon as he got in the flying spur, he said, where am I going to put my gun? And,
right.
So the console could be bigger.
And he said, you know what?
You
need to work on the glove box.
That's why they hired your brother.
You have all kinds of customers.
We should get Jamie Douglas in here for the next one. Get his side of the story. Okay, so what car did you have on your wall as a kid? We haven't got actually any background. We've gone straight into Bentley, but let's get a little bit of background, understand exactly who you are, what you do. You've designed sneakers, NFTs, drones, music consoles, cars, but your passion's motorcycles. So you can leave now. But no, just kidding. And you've also you had a big career at Bentley, designed the interiors of the GT3R, Super Sport, Flying Spur, the car we just spoke about, and a lot of the stuff there. So just tell us about that. What did you have on your wall as a kid? Did you ever achieve that? And tell us a bit about
You're going to be shocked if I say I never had a car on the wall.
Never had a car on the wall? Okay,
no,
what did you have on there?
I always, I like cars.
What,
you have a bike on the wall?
What pinups did you have?
So the car that actually got me into car design, believe it or not, was a 180 Mercedes-Benz.
Okay.
Because Dad had one of those. And I still remember vaguely when I was a 5-year-old kid dropping ice cream on its cream.
I think
on
we
the
all
cream
did that.
seat with the white ivory steering wheel, off-white steering wheel, and I just looked at it, and it obviously the Mercedes has the the 3-star, and anything and everything to me, I could imagine it to be a Mercedes first. And in some ways, the car, I shouldn't be saying so much about Mercedes, but then in some ways, it was Mercedes all the time. And then, of course, cars, I got hooked onto it. But then I wanted to be, because I enjoyed drawing, I wanted to be a cartoonist or something.
Nice.
So I used to do a lot of animation stuff. So
Cool.
I used to keep drawing. I was brought up in Goa, so I used to keep drawing folks from Goa and or Latin American folks, things like that. So I did
Any
that
good
a lot.
cars in Goa back then?
Say that again, sorry.
Any good cars in Goa back then?
There were quite a few Mercedes.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And then there were Defenders and
Yeah.
not Defenders, the old Land Rovers. What else can I think of? And then there were old American cars, but not too many because they were all. India didn't open up till 1992.
How about
so.
you, Cass? What did you have on your wall?
So how did you get from cartoons to cars?
I think my dad thought, okay, this guy's interested
Yeah.
in cartoons, and he was in the car place as well. He was working for Tata Motors back then, so he
Right.
he thought maybe he should, if he likes cartoons and whatever, I'll put him in that. So he put me on a course like that, which I didn't quite enjoy, and realized maybe this is not for me.
Yeah.
And then chased my dream to be I didn't know at the time if I could be a car designer. I didn't know such a thing. So
Yeah.
So I said, okay, maybe you do a mechanical engineering course, and then you go from there. So I did that, and then ended up working with Tata Motors as their test driver for their first car
Beautiful.
job.
Yeah.
Which is when I saw there was a studio where everybody quietly went to, and that's when I realized, okay,
Somebody's designing these things.
these things, that's what I need to do. And so I chased the dream.
So how'd you get from that to a drone and a music console then?
Fast forwarding. I'm working at Bentley, and I chose to kind of outsource myself to Bentley because it provided me a lot of benefits in that sense. So while I was designing Bentleys, we used to get projects in between, which I cannot reveal now, but non-car related products, which never saw the light of the day. But I realized that kind of spurred the designer in me. And that's when I realized why I always also like cars. I like designing. Maybe in par with how much I like cars, maybe more. And that gets your juices flowing because it's something completely different that you do. And then you come back to doing cars. And so I had these guys who were car guys, but running successful companies, in this case Midas, and they came to me and they said, do you want to do a music console for us? So they had an R&D in Manchester, so I did something for them. The drone was something, again, cannot reveal it because...
Top secret.
Okay.
No, it's
Cool.
not seen the light of the day yet, so... yeah. And then again, the sneakers, it was a Bentley client
What
again.
do you got on your feet right now?
Adidas, always. And so the sneaker guy was a client for Bentley, so I met him during one of the co-creations in Toronto, and he had this idea of doing shoes, and because he saw, okay,
Cool.
he's a Bentley designer, maybe we do it along. So yeah, it was a bit of a crazy idea. So if I talk about it, it might be a bit off, but I'll say anyway. So he had this idea of making sneakers for, I'm sorry, I'm deviating.
No.
Perfect.
For something, where you basically had cocaine was basically, he said, don't ask me how I know it, but basically he says cocaine comes as bricks and you break it. I'm deviating from the topic, but you can delete it. And then there's a little marble there. And that's how you find it's a authentic piece. So he wanted the shoes and the soles to look like it was a brick
The
of
bricks.
cocaine with a negative there and a marble on this side from where it came off. These were some of the ideas. So, of course, slowly I pulled away from him.
You're like, I'd much rather go and put a gun in a glove box than a block of cocaine in a sneaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so
No, I am interested to see what you did have on your walls.
me,
Yeah, as a teenager.
I didn't have cars on my walls.
What'd you have?
Musicians.
I
Musicians?
had
Backstreet Boys?
I had, I think I used to just have,
Barbie?
no, I used to, I used to have ads. I liked ads that looked kind of eclectic all together, different colours.
Name one.
Like, not for the product, but for the ad itself.
Okay.
So, the design of the ad was looked aesthetically nice. So I'd make a collage of lots of different ads.
Nice.
You guys are kindred spirits. It's all about the design.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's
So I can relate to what you say.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, because I don't know, I was never really drawn to the pop stars. So, and I had photos, lots of photos of, me and my friends.
So what did you have, man? Besides the
I had
40,
cars.
what are the cars did you have?
At 40, I had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, but mainly cars and, I guess, muscly men. It's a bit weird, but very inspirational.
So you're working towards both anyway. One of them you've got anyway. Like I just said when I came to the studio, you look fitter than ever before.
I've always been working to certain
You should
goals.
see what's on our bedroom wall now.
We watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What's in your bedroom wall?
We watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger new documentary on Netflix, and it's just fantastic. And after watching that, I said to Cassie, "Right, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. I'm going to the gym, and everything else. Now I'm working at 4 a.m. because that's what he did. It's early bird catches the worm.
Is that how he's turned himself around?
Early bird catches the worm,
and you can see it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we watched it over like a period of time. There's 3 episodes, but they're quite long, so we didn't watch them all in one go.
Watched 3 episodes. I went to the gym 3 times.
So every time we watched a chunk of it, he'd be really motivated and like for the next couple of weeks be like just, and then it would like wane as he got tired.
Next time, I'll tell you what, next time he's with the pizza and beer on a Friday, you just put that
just put Arnie back on.
I forgot what he did here.
Maybe. It's visual motivation. It really is. And that's what it comes down for cars. Like if I like the look of it, I want it.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's why I put it up there. And if I have some sort of visual motivation, it's still taking me 45 years to get here, but I'm still determined.
This is where my field is as well. Is when I thought I was into all the 0 to 60 figures and the engines and everything else. Of course, I do like a good handling car and everything, but it was a visual aspect that attracted me towards it because just standing there, that's your first interaction with the.
Well, essentially, you're an artist. You're an artist, and this is art in my, like, apart from some of the modern ones that might just be pure performance. It's definitely art, and that's kind of what we're trying.
Because it's got to show what the car's capable of doing when you look at it for the first time. It's your first and only interaction. Some of the people haven't even driven supercars, but then they look at it and they say, I imagine it does this. So it gets you into a kind of a fantasy world, and you think, right, that's what this thing is capable of. So therefore, it becomes a toy that you want to put on your, whether it's cars or whether it's motorcycles.
You don't hit that. Sorry. Same thing happened to me.
This is what happens is... just the way it looks. For example, it's a motorcycle, unfortunately, but I rode this bike I talked about, this 1974 bike, but it was nothing like the bike that I have now because of the modern tech and everything else. It beats it. But the whole romanticism of having it, even though it's nowhere close to, because after that, when I sat on my own bike, it handled shit hot, and you think, wow, that was really old. But then you go back and look at that bike, and you think, this looks so cool. And the guy, somebody else asked me, he said, why do you want to own it then? I said, no, it's just a piece of art in motion. So I want to have it.
Absolutely.
It's just there. So at least, rather than having a toy or a scale model, which is there, I'm actually looking at a piece of motorcycle that was a mechanical looking part. And I can tell a story around it. So that's what attracted me towards it, and said, by the way, I can ride it as well if I want to have fun. So
So kind of given that, where do you get your inspiration from when you're trying to, if you're thinking the end game is a customer's going to come up to this and they're going to buy it because it's telling them something visually, in the aesthetic, they're getting something from it. Do you get your inspiration from the modern cars or the classic cars, or neither, or both?
Okay, now we had kind of the very interesting times where from IC engine cars we're going into all electric. So now you wouldn't get a client who is going to ask for a petrol or a diesel car. It's going to be a nice car. And unfortunately, they all have screens and everything else that comes with it. And if you see the EXP GT, the car that I did, it's got no screens. But what we're trying to say is...
It's got no screens.
It's got no screens in that car.
That was 2019, was it?
Sorry?
When you designed that?
2019, yeah. No, but it was designed for 2035, but it's got no screens on it's a different thing that, it comes up. So it's basically got to be like a typical, what we're trying to say in that car is it's got to be like a butler. He's not around anywhere. But when you need something, he's there and you get it. So the screen similarly shouldn't be on your face. So it's like a butler staring at you, and you don't want that. When you're having a conversation, you don't want a guy there. So
That's so true.
Interesting, yeah.
and that's what it is.
I certainly
and
don't
I
want
don't
any
understand
screens.
why everybody's got it. I mean, it's a bit like in 2003 or 2000, you had Nokia, I don't know what, 3310 or whatever. You wouldn't want one of those now. But the way technology is moving, and if these guys are talking about their screens and their UX and everything, if cars are not able to upgrade itself pretty quick, then suddenly a car's like a phone, which just gets
obsolete.
obsolete.
Well,
in
I don't
no
know.
time.
Like, that's
Yeah.
that's
However,
the thing, right? Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
aim. So that's the aim, is that we try and get the car to look fresh every time, whether it can be updated, so on and so forth. And so in terms of inspiration, we would try and get influenced by, if it's got a heritage, get it. But obviously when you're doing EVs, most of them are startups. So they usually come with no heritage like a Bentley or anything as such. But the good thing is you almost got a blank canvas. So you can, begin with giving it
Create
something.
their heritage.
So then you choose everything that's around you, from product design to architecture, and use those influences into this new age cars, let's say.
And what do you think of the design, the comparison of designs of, if you think of supercars nowadays? So Emmanuel said the F40 is, the car of his dreams. It was on his wall. Looks super different to the Ferrari supercars or other supercars today.
Yeah.
Aesthetically, they're so different. So kind of, what do you make of that? What do you make of the...
I think the change has come through science and the technology that was available. So in terms of aerodynamics, manufacturing processes. So now you could do shapes you couldn't think of doing back then. And so that's why you have some, the Bugatti Veyron and the Chiron and everything else having shapes that you can't even think of, which they can come up with. And so obviously over the last few decades, all that has changed. And also in terms of how cars are connected remotely and everything else, which you couldn't think of back then. So it's almost like having a Formula One car, but road legal on the road. So
yeah.
Well, coming back to the thing about the screens, I don't want any screens in my car. Like, I want some dials, I want some performance, and I want a visceral feeling that's beautiful, and that's where the Bentley interior comes in, right? Like, there's nothing like that in my opinion. But like I said, I don't really know what the outside looks like. I know what the inside looks like.
What is it about the F40 that gets you going?
Well, it's just 1980s, modern classics. There's just something about that raw design that they stripped everything out. It was just carbon fiber and a couple of seats and a big engine. That's kind of it. There's nothing to it apart from
it's actually, there's a lot more. There's it's funny you say that, because there's a guy I have who's 6 feet 7 inch, and he's a guy I used to work with initially north of London, and we went out shopping for his F40. And
you went shopping for a North F40. Where'd you go? The local F40 shop.
Not London.
The local
year was
F40 shop.
2005, 6.
Will he come on here and show us his car?
Yeah, he's got a few. I've told you about him. I've told you about Nick Phelps, the guy I told you about who's got all these cars.
Oh, okay.
So if you've named a car, he's usually had it.
Right, right.
So we went out. In fact, that was the first time I
not related to Michael Phelps.
No.
Right.
I
don't know.
There's many Phelps.
Who's Nick Phelps? I don't know.
So Nick Phelps runs a company called the Curvature Group. It's probably got a few companies that does models for mainly yachts and planes, and also cars.
He's got plenty of cash, and he's got an F40 amongst others, and a huge collection.
He had the F40, and he got it at a good price, and he's got an OCD, so he obviously spent a lot of time just getting the tailpipes together exactly the way he wanted it, because he thought one was slightly off. And then he enjoyed the car, and so he sat inside one of his F40s, and we went out together and went out for a few drives together, because I spent time on that. So on one such a thing, he said, "I'm going to sell this car," and I said, "Why would he sell it? Wouldn't you wait for some more time, even if?" He said it's only because I'm too tall for this car, 6 feet 7 inches, and the pedals were paid off.
Yes.
And he said, I'm having trouble with that.
Put his back out.
So he said, I've got to let it go. He said, I can't have the car if I'm not going to drive it on a regular basis.
Interesting.
And all that. Yeah, it's interesting because when he goes to meet his clients, he goes in his white van.
Right.
And nobody even realizes he's got these cars. He had the McLaren Senna edition and a few Bentleys, and he's getting the next EV Rolls Royce, which...
I mean, these are all cars that are pretty much unobtainable for the majority of people these days, right? We're talking in the millions now.
Yeah.
So how does somebody get involved, do you think, in this...
Because
in sort of achieving their passion,
yeah. So what he
if
did,
they haven't got buckets of cash.
No. So what he did was he started off. He made these money because of his passion for cars. So what he did was he used to buy all these Japanese cars, which he used to. He said every car he bought, he actually drove and then sold it on. So he enjoyed the car and then sold it, not just like a car salesman.
Yes.
So he had that passion. So he did that and made the money doing all this. And then, of course, he upgraded and went on. He would book GT3R RS way ahead of it being launched, and he would get the car. He took one to Silverstone. I remember seeing that as well, and then took it off, and the pebbles hit it. It had scuffs, but he was a model-making company, managed to clean the wheels and sell it for more money. So he did this, and now what he does is he holds events all around Europe. So he kind of hosts all these car club guys and takes them over to places in Europe, wherever the racetrack is, ship their cars or ship his own kind of toys. And he would make an event out of it. And then what would he do? So while he's actually enjoying doing what he's doing, he then goes driving with them. So he's racing. So basically he thought, I enjoy racing, so I might as well just do this and make money out of it.
He's living the dream.
So he basically is personifying the idea that he loves the cars, but he also understands that they're an asset.
Exactly.
He's turned it into a business.
Yeah.
He's turned it into
He's
business.
turned
That's how he made
his
his
hobby
money.
into his business.
Yeah.
But he still loves the cars.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's amazing. Well, it's the same as my uncle. He turned Kerry Manolis. He started his hobby, which was buying a car that he liked, and he wanted to race it, and he turned that into a business where he was buying a car, he'd use it, drive it all around the world, Mille Miglia, races, all the historical races, and then he'd sell that one and then get the next one and then do the same. So I don't know how many he had at the same time, but he went through a succession of some of the most amazing cars you've ever seen. And which is a lot of the inspiration for this channel and this podcast is the history of him with automotive over the last 30, 40 years. I mean, he was the original barn find guy before the internet. So yeah, you can make really good money out of it. But if you're not lucky enough to get that in place and you want to achieve your automotive dreams, you've got to go out there, you've got to buy the car that you want, you've got to use it, you've got to hope one day it goes up, or you've got to stay really in sync with the marketplace, which is not easy for the average person to do. So
no, you need to know what these cars are doing. So do you have a particular passion for Mini Coopers?
Is that because I had a track record of two of them?
BMWs?
No, actually, the Mini Cooper is more to do with the wife liking it as well, but I do. And then I nearly was going to get the old Mini Cooper last year. Well, I don't know. Strangely, I say I don't like BMWs and everything else, but I seem to have owned
you basically only own BMWs and Mini Coopers.
I don't know, but it's only when I made that list I realized, oh my God, everything's the one that's common is BMW out there. Yeah. No, but right now I drive a Volvo and I completely love it. So I had it as a company car when I was working with Volvo cars in Gothenburg. And we toured around Europe from Norway to Czech and everywhere else. I mean, it was COVID period, and we didn't have the regulation in Sweden, so we didn't care. So we just drove everywhere with it. And it was such a nice car. I mean, it is a beautiful car. So very understated in that sense, very Scandic in that sense.
My father had a Volvo four-wheel drive SUV,
and
but the image was really like, I guess, really family orientated, but never changed that now.
Well, I feel like I'm hearing about people trading in their Range Rovers for Volvos.
So it's interesting we say that again, because especially with what you said as well, family car. So Volvo's now, like you said, they're probably trading in because of being on the right side, let's say, all the sustainability and everything.
Right.
And they don't just, I think, because I work there, I know they don't just put it as a label and say, okay, this is sustainable and so on and so forth. They actually do use the materials. I mean, you won't find a Volvo in future with leather. It's out. And I mean, it's arguable whether you call it using leather sustainable or
Man-made
non-sustainable.
leather, they call it. The Mercedes is calling it man-made leather. I asked them because we've got a BMW and X3, and it's a fantastic car. It's got leather seats.
In my opinion, it's this is.
But they say, but Mercedes, the Mercedes SUV that we're looking at had man-made leather, and I said, what's man-made leather? And they said, well, it's like leather. It feels the same. It's sort of
It's like a leather made of
I'm
plastic.
like, it's not the same.
It actually feels like PVC.
It's not the same. So and
It's not
that
the
was the
same.
reason
It
why
doesn't-
I didn't pull the trigger on the Mercedes.
Yeah, in my opinion, people are not going to stop eating meat.
Is
And
Bentley
this
going
is a byproduct of
Is
it.
Bentley ever going to go fake leather? Let's
They'll
hope,
never do
let's
fake
hope
leather.
not. They're
No,
never going
they'll
to
never
do it, right?
They'll never do that.
And that's great.
However,
opinion.
the Volvo, coming back to the thing, is the reason they're trading in is because they want to be seen in the right side of the
Yeah.
thing. And now they just recently they launched their smallest ever SUV. Have you seen it? The EX30 Volvo,
No, I
the
haven't
baby
seen it.
SUV. You got to have a look at it.
Yeah.
Not because I was part of the team that did it as well.
It's not a plug. What is it? An ES what?
EX30 Volvo was just
EX30.
launched two months back. It's a baby SUV, and I think that's a winner for Volvo. It looks cool, and it's everything that a Volvo is inside, distilled inside a small SUV. You've never seen a Volvo like that. You always thought Volvo station wagons. but
Yeah.
This is a
Sedan,
baby
the kind
SUV.
of yeah.
which has got all everything that a Volvo has inside it, and going forward.
The one thing I disliked about the Volvo that my father had, I can't remember what model it was.
It was a while ago though.
It was a while back, but the headrest of the front seats really pushed your neck forward, and I think that was some sort of safety device where, if you do have a crash, it reduces your whiplash. But like driving around like this is just kind of a little bit uncomfortable.
you fixed that
So I
problem?
removed.
So I didn't have that problem with my Volvo. So
I removed the headrest and flipped it round and had it on backwards.
all right.
And that was much more comfortable. But maybe they don't do that anymore.
I don't know because I've driven again at Gothenburg. We had a track day where we had some of the old Volvos, and we went on a wet day around their track and didn't find it. Maybe I was so involved in driving it fast that I didn't think of whether
You had a helmet on, maybe.
No, we never. No.
Great. All right. Cool.
Well, I think
So you need a hard wrap up,
okay.
which would probably be like if you could pick, or for you guys particularly, if you could pick one car that you had to drive forever and one car that you had to own as an investment forever, that sort of question.
Yeah. Okay.
Money's not a problem, huh?
Money's not- yeah.
Limitless.
Okay, you go for that, Cass.
But
You ask the question.
I'll ask a question.
And
Yeah.
then thanks very much for joining us. And
Yeah.
Rajesh Kutty. Yeah.
just close it because
Yeah.
this will be the last bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to ask the question anyway, isn't it?
I'm going to ask you the question anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So, we have a little closing activity to. What's the point of
Just say something like before we wrap this up. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we've got a little bit of a wrap up game.
Yeah.
If you, and money is no issue, if you could pick two cars and one you'll own forever, you'll drive it, you'll love it, and the other one you'll own it with the view of selling it and making some money, what would those two cars be?
Oh, this is so difficult. This is very difficult. There's quite a few. So if I choose one, doesn't mean that's the one. But anyway, I'll have to say something. So,
Yeah. We're not going to hold you to it.
Okay, so I would have. By the way, sorry, that car was a Bentley Brooklands, which I was talking about.
Bentley what?
Bentley Brooklands.
Bentley
back to
Brooklyn.
it.
The,
Favourite
the reason
Bentley.
it came back to me was
The one-
because that's a car I always wanted. But
Right.
but now money's not the problem. So
How
Right.
much is a Bentley Brooklyn?
I think it'll be a because I'm so much of a Bentley guy and don't want to go the normal way with the Porsche and everything. Maybe
you go,
I
well
will
then.
take. There you go. That's the one. So maybe the Blue Train Bentley. the Bentley Blue Train, as the
This-
car that I would.
Love.
So one is to keep and then
One is to keep and love,
yeah,
and that's the car that you love and you want to drive it and own it.
yeah.
And then the other one is to flip it at some point to make some money.
So this guy
As
I
an
would
investment.
keep forever.
Why?
Because of everything. I mean, look at its body side. It's got a narrow DLO. So this is the daylight opening. It's so narrow, and this is big. So in a vintage car like that, they could manage to make it look so sporty. And if you stood next to one of them, your height would be somewhere there. And obviously, it's got a story behind it. They say the legend goes that it was a race from. Don't hold me for this. From a place to a place, I think Geneva to Paris or something, and then it was supposed to race against the train, hence the name Blue Train. and
Right.
everything. And obviously, this one won it outright.
Looks like a train carriage.
It actually
inside.
looks like a
Yeah,
train.
Amazing.
Well, this is from what 1930s.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the car that I would sell on, you wouldn't want to sell anything on if you like it so much. How do you do that? Okay, so purely in terms
What
of
do you want to thrash and then move on?
Or no, make some money out of.
Okay, make some money out of it.
Yeah.
You can't thrash it then.
Yeah. No, he's thrashing the Blue Train.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I can imagine you thrashing something.
okay, then maybe this one goes to the one I sell, and then, and then I would probably
We're getting a bit stuck here, let's face it.
yeah, it's very difficult. And I'm getting too emotional with it. Okay, let's put it this way then.
Mini Cooper.
Yeah, maybe. So the car that I would drive around and thrash around would be a JCW Mini Cooper from the gone era, and then the Blue Train would be the investment.
Amazing.
Nice. You like the classics.
Done.
Done. Done.
Thanks very much,
Done.
Rajesh Kutty.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming
Thanks
down.
for coming.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you,
Thanks
Cassie.
for having me.